Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, an Italy travel podcast. I'm Darcy Melton.
And I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And we are back, recording as normal. We have been, you all have heard us normally, but we have not been recording for about 4 or 5 weeks. We pre-recorded many episodes so that we would be prepared while I was back in the U.S. doing artsy things
a week
and
off.
visiting. And then a week off, which was great to be able to let my brain rest. It takes a lot to travel, y'all.
It really does. Speaking of our travel podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's also, just as a heads up to those of you who might hear some background noise, it is storming and windy and raining today. And we're getting a lot of, well, I guess wind and rain and storm. And it's hitting the balcony doors and it's making things flutter outside. So we've tried to dampen the noise as best as possible. But there might be some leakage coming through. Obviously, if it gets really bad, we will pause and just resume later.
Sound leakage, not water leakage.
Yes, sorry, sound. Oh, yeah. Well,
I mean, I knew what you meant, and I think you were clear, but I don't want y'all to worry. There's no water coming inside the house.
there's not.
Well, it is a little bit, but it's controlled.
It's expected.
So this week we are talking about headlines. We're going to do 2 episodes of headlines just to keep y'all kind of updated with some stuff that's going on in Italy.
Yeah, especially before your trip. And some of this is going to be about strikes, and some is just simply about interesting things or headlines that made international news. And that way, when you talk about Italy with your friends, you'll feel informed and updated. And we've done these obviously the last couple of months. We started somewhere in the summer. We started doing headlines. And it seems like y'all enjoy listening to them, or they tend to have a lot of plays. So we figured we might as well keep doing it. And this will help us get back into the rhythm. As we've mentioned, we've not done this in about a month. And man, you really fall out of habit. So,
absolutely. I feel rusty.
Yeah. And I'm going to try to speak slower as well. I realize, especially in the last couple of episodes, the Naples Condensed especially, it was towards the end of 3 days of recording, and it was the last couple episodes we recorded, and I realized I was just sort of slurring words together. So I'm trying to come back to this by speaking very slowly and very clearly and not rushing. So we're going to see if that works out. I might lose my train of thought here and there, but if I concentrate too much on speaking slowly, than the words I'm actually saying, but we will see.
We're still learning. And I think we both realize and appreciate all of you sticking with us because we're not
absolutely
trained podcasters or speakers, and we're learning as we go. And I think we're improving. But like we just said, we recorded many of these ahead of time up until now. And so I think by the end of that, we were a little bit tired and a little bit rushing. And today I just sniffled because I have a bit of a cold. So again, we're not professional. We are learning as we go, but I feel like we're getting better, and we appreciate you all sticking with us.
Yes, absolutely. And before we get started, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's been following. In fact, we just recently passed 500 followers on Spotify. Spotify even sent us an email saying congratulations on 500 followers.
They personally sent that to us.
Not 3 hours later, they sent another one saying, just so you know, you only have 500 followers, but other podcasts in your listener, like your active listeners, have 1,250. Consider asking people to follow your podcasts. And I thought, wow, Spotify, thank you. I hadn't considered that. So yet again, here we are saying, if you like the podcast and you'd like to follow along, you can do so on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We also have a website, onlyabag.com, that we've actually spent the last week or 2 adding more articles, and we are going to introduce a new little area called sort of essentially First Trip to Italy Walkthrough Guide. And essentially it's just point A to point Z, I guess.
Right. There will be many points in there, yes.
There we go, A to Z, on the idea of just kind of what we talked about in some of these episodes, how to plan your trip, what to get before you go, when is the best time to buy tickets or gear or whatever you might need. And so that's all going to be under a new thing on the website, but we've been adding tons of articles in the last week or so just because we've had the time. And last but not least, if you like what you're hearing and you want to support us, you can do so on Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/onlyabag, where we accept donations. And you can also leave a review on Spotify or Apple if you enjoy the podcast and you'd like other people to enjoy it as well.
And you can reach out to us at onlyabag.com.
Absolutely.
And that's actually where we got this idea from a listener who reached out
Yes.
on doing the section on our website of first time in Italy info. So thank you, listener.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Are we ready to jump into headlines?
Jump it in.
Okay. Number one thing that will affect your trip in our headlines this week is strikes. And we are going to probably be doing an upcoming episode sort of breaking down strikes and why they happen so often in Italy. We're not going to get into that today because y'all know we'll go off on it and that will be the whole episode.
It will be the rest of the day. Yep.
So that's going to be a different episode. But so that you know, there are 2 upcoming strikes. There is one happening this Friday, November 28th, 2025. And there will be another one on December 12th.
You might notice that they are both on Fridays.
Yes.
That has been the cause of some criticism, I will say, in the country. But
yeah, I think people were like, oh, it's for convenience. It's so that they have a long weekend. I think it makes sense, though, because if you're planning a strike, it is more convenient for people who need to travel to plan for a Friday rather than a random day during the week.
Exactly. Or a Monday, which is like the first day people are back at work. So you could still have a 3-day weekend, but a Monday, I think, affects people a lot more than a Friday. There's also the argument that a 3-day, it's a 3-day weekend technically, but most people in Italy still work on Saturday. It's still a full work day. It's not a day off. So it loses a lot of its argument. Certain teachers have a half day because kids are a half day at school and people still go to work at businesses in cities and financial institutes. So Saturday is not really a day off in that sense. So I think some of the criticism is a bit, I don't know, in my mind, it's a bit sort of off topic because it's not necessarily, trains still run on Saturday.
Yes, and Sunday.
Sunday, yeah. So it's somebody taking a Friday is not necessarily for them, it's just it's just a day.
It's also not a paid day off for the people who are striking. They don't get paid for that day. So just another point of the argument as to why it's, I was
going to say, as you said, you were going to go into this and immediately it was like, well, now's a good time. We should do it now.
Did it.
Yeah.
So here's the pertinent information for you all. On November 28th, it's a November 28th strike, but it technically begins 9 p.m. Thursday, the 27th.
Yes. So it's for you listening tomorrow night at 9 p.m.
Yes. So 9 p.m. Thursday, the 27th, until 9 p.m. Friday, the 28th. And this will affect trains, sort of national transport, local transport, air traffic, things like that.
And if I may, it's mostly, so with Trenitalia and I believe Italo as well, they have guaranteed long distance trains. So if you happen to be in the country and you are going from Rome to Florence or Rome to Venice, that train is almost certainly guaranteed.
And we will put a link to that list in the description of this episode.
Yes. And I don't believe, on that note, that list changes too frequently. There seems to be pretty standard trains. Anything, essentially the idea I think is that the strikes won't affect tourists too much, and tourists are really the one going from Rome to Florence. So I think the idea is to kind of keep the strikes separate from that. However, Rome's transportation will also be affected. So if you are in Rome Thursday night, like at dinner, for instance, you might have difficulty getting back to your hotel or wherever you're staying. Same thing Friday if you're going out and about. I believe buses, trams, and metros are all striking and either running a reduced schedule or no schedule. You might find some in the morning that do run, but then in the afternoons or midday, it won't be running. And then you mentioned air transit as well.
Yes. Before we get to air transit, though, I do want to mention, so you talked about how tourists often aren't affected by this because they typically take the long haul, sort of Rome to Florence trains, things like that. So they do have preclusions, is that the right word? They do have essentially people who are working in Italy and are Italians. They try to make sure those people can get to work as well. So essential regional services are guaranteed from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Friday.
Okay.
Just as a note.
That makes sense.
So yes, so air traffic. So flight crews, baggage handlers, airport ground staff, and other airport services will be affected. Flights are guaranteed from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Friday the 28th.
Wow, that's not super guaranteed.
Yes, I don't really understand what that means. Again, I believe I have a a link to what flights are going to be guaranteed. So we'll put that in the description as well.
And in either case, though, everybody is recommending to plan for cancellations and disruptions, delays. Is that
Absolutely.
exactly? So, because I think it's ground staff as well as some airplane staff, but mostly ground staff, I believe. So essentially, they're
But flight crews as well.
okay,
Italian flight crews at least.
Okay, so that is just in case you're coming on either this Friday or leaving this Friday, or on December 12th if you're coming for like sort of a holiday, winter, snowing, skiing type thing. Just keep in mind that those days might be a bit of a dicey travel day.
I would say that you're more likely to not have problems on a train. I feel like you're more likely to have problems in the airport flying on that day.
Sure.
I don't know, but that's my sense. And so December 12th, they have slightly different hours for the strike. It will be midnight on Thursday the 11th until 9 p.m. on Friday the 12th.
Okay, so not even 24 hours, just whatever that is,
Like
21 hours.
hours, yeah.
Okay, nice.
So that is strikes. And be looking out for another episode of us breaking down why they happen.
Yeah, that'd be kind of fun.
And
I'm
us
excited.
supporting unions.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I think that's what most of it comes down to is there's no mechanism in Italy or any country really that guarantees certain things. So you kind of have to negotiate for it constantly. And I think that's what it keeps circling back to is like every 6 months, every 3 months, there's another negotiation and another sort of, I get that they're also scheduled too, which I always find fascinating. Like it's not we're going to do it tomorrow. It's always like,
Right.
okay, you have a month to prepare.
And it can feel like that though. I mean, if you're not up on the news or if you're not listening
For
to this
sure.
podcast or happen to be looking at local news, you might not see that it's coming up. So
I'm
it
going to
can
rename this podcast to just
look
Strikes in Italy.
exactly.
Just keep on top of those.
We try to for y'all's sake and for our sake, but mostly for y'all. So moving on to sad news.
Okay.
The Torre dei Conti in Rome was recently being renovated, restored, right? And part of it collapsed.
And this made international news. It's something you all have almost certainly already heard. It was a sort of a sudden and tragic story of part of a tower collapsing. And you can kind of see there's a lot of videos released of essentially like the walls were intact, but the inside, it looked like floors on the inside had collapsed, kind of coming out. It looked like there's a chute on the side. I don't know if it was a window or something they were just excavating to add in supports. A number of workers were buried. They were all rescued. One rescued much later than the others and was alive. And I think on the transport to the hospital or at the hospital ended up passing away. The Roberto Gualtieri, the mayor of Rome, held a day of mourning for him. And of course, it's also sort of opened up a huge discussion around safety standards because apparently this has been a site and a company that was already cited for lax safety standards. And so they were basically looking into this saying, this should not have happened. And we knew this was like, you knew something like this was going to happen. It also seems to have incited a bit of conversation around the sort of idea of Italy is, as you can imagine, just a country just lousy with ruins. And there's a giant question of like, do you restore all of them? Do you knock some of them down? Do you just, they are dangerous. I mean, they are sort of, a lot of them are on the verge of collapse. So is it better to knock it down and rebuild something totally different? Or is it better to restore it? So I think it's reignited or definitely started some conversations about that, which, and again, I don't know how much that'll affect you in your trip necessarily, but it is something that, I don't know. It's just I think now re-entered the public sort of mind around like, again because this is I believe it's near the Colosseum, and that's always again even though it's such a like this vision of Rome is the Colosseum, but I think every year people want to do something different with it, like whether it's having concerts in the Colosseum or plays or productions or something.
And it needs constant upkeep. All of these ruined buildings need constant restoration and upkeep, which in the wrong situations, the wrong circumstances, evidently can be really hazardous. Yeah. That's really terrible.
So we just wanted to mention that because it had happened since we'd been gone, and it just felt like it was kind of part of that sort of, again, I'm not necessarily related to travel too much, but certainly related to why people come to Europe, to Italy, I guess, and the sort of downsides, I suppose.
Yeah, important to talk about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Speaking of important things to talk about, this one is a serious one, but ultimately good news.
Okay. Wow.
So there is a new sexual consent law in Italy. Well, it is hopefully going to be passed. It's been proposed.
I think today, the day
Today,
of recording this
as
was
we
Tuesday,
record.
is supposed to pass.
The Senate.
Yeah, it's like slated to pass. Like nobody expects it to not pass, to be
Right.
clear.
So basically, this is a landmark bill defining sexual consent as quote unquote free and current.
Yeah, that's pretty straight. Which I think means freely given, not
Yes.
like.
It's not free to have. It
Yeah.
means freely. So you have to give consent freely and at the moment.
Rather than like yesterday you said it was okay and
Right.
today you did not, kind of thing.
A very similar bill or law, I think, recently passed in France, right?
I believe so. I believe so. And I think this is tackling a lot of the case, because a lot of the cases right now, we've talked about this before. We had another depressing episode on femicide, which important, but still ultimately a bit depressing.
Very sad, yes.
And a lot of it was, again, surrounding this concept, not a lot of it, some of it was surrounding this concept of consent, because I think Italy and France and other countries have a sort of, well, I didn't ask for consent, but who
This
really
sort of
does?
gray area.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is an attempt to remove the gray area and essentially say, no. There's no gray area. It's either, if it's not this, then it's not consent.
If
Then
it's not a yes, then it's a no.
exactly. So it's supposed to sort of formalize and codify, like, to me, I think it's supposed to essentially make court cases easier also going forward to be, if it wasn't free and it wasn't current, then it's a no.
Yeah,
And
to protect victims.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
so it is it's a huge celebration. Basically, people are pretty excited because it just feels like a step in the right direction away from that sort of gray area, and also that sort of like, not even he said, she said, or he said, she said, she said sort of argument, but just that sort of, well, things are done on a social level here where, you don't ask certain things. You just, things
Right.
are implied. And it's like, right. So let's move away from implication into very clear communication.
Because
So,
that's the argument everywhere,
yeah.
you know?
So it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting news. Again, as you said, a lot more serious than
Serious, but exciting.
this has been.
We're moving
three really kind of, serious.
In other happy news,
Okay.
a young woman named, I'm going to say her first name wrong. I believe it's pronounced in a way that I'm not good at pronouncing. Bento? Mia Diop. Mia
Okay.
Diop sounds Italian. The other, I think, is Senegalese French, so I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. So she is 23. She is recently the new deputy president of Tuscany. She was appointed by Governor Eugenio Gianni. She is part of the center-left Partito Democratico Party, and she was born in Tuscany, and her father is Senegalese, her mother is German-Italian. She's young, and she's super passionate about politics and helping people, and she just seems awesome, and I'm really excited.
It's interesting. It's kind of following a trend, it seems like, of younger generations being able, or not being able to, but having their voice heard in office rather than just sort of not, I guess, having their voice heard. But I think it's an interest. I'm excited to see what's happening, because there's just yesterday, I think Monday. So yesterday for us, 2 days ago for y'all listening, there was elections in the Campania region, Puglia region, and Veneto region. Again, nothing that will probably affect your trip. However, for more than that, it'll possibly affect those of you who are one day wanting citizenship, because it is like, for instance, the person who was elected in Campania is a proponent, I guess. He's somebody who wants the sort of birthright citizenship of, if your great grandparents are from Italy, you should be able to reclaim citizenship. And he's somebody who supports that. So I think 2027 is the next sort of general election for Italy. I think where the prime minister and everybody else is up for re-election. Basically, it's kind of fascinating because it's just one of the longest running governments Italy's had in a while. It's been because usually after like 2 or 3 years is that usually some sort of vote for no confidence vote, or there's a schism within the ruling coalition. So one party breaks off, and then the two or three other parties don't have enough votes to maintain control, so they have to triggers a re-election. So it's interesting to know that this system that currently gets a lot of international eyes on it, like the Giorgia Meloni Brothers of Italy party, it's one of the ones that's also there hasn't been a fracture in it necessarily.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yet. And I'm saying yet because in Veneto, apparently the other right-wing party, Lega, for those of you who know the parties, actually won a seat It's basically Lego was one of the Lego members was giving up their seat, and another Lego member won the seat. But it was a chance for the Brothers of Italy to win that seat, and they didn't. And even though they do work together, these two parties, they are still fundamentally different parties and are still fundamentally competitors. So it's I don't know how to explain it. Like
There's an interesting system, and I'm not claiming at all to understand the way Italian politics work, but it's an interesting system, I guess, when you compare it specifically to the U.S.
yes,
political
that's
system.
exactly what I'm thinking.
It's there are several different parties, but they form coalitions, so they work together, but they're still fundamentally not the same, you know?
Right. Well, it's even like the elections yesterday. It was voting for somebody who's like the 5-star movement, which is not. I mean, I don't know that much about political parties, but it tends to be more a center right party. But it's supported by the center left and the Green Party and the Left Party and all these other left wing parties because they're like, it's somebody who's a lot of his stances are, at least in Italy, left stances rather than right stances. But it's again that the whole left right I think doesn't work as well in Italy because it's more.
There's not as clear a line.
There is really
I think,
not
in
yeah.
Italy, again, compared to the U.S. I don't know how politics work almost anywhere else in the world, to be honest. So, but when you're comparing it to the U.S. mindset, there's a bit more blurred lines
because it's
between
one
the
or the
parties.
other. It's very binary, but here it's very much like you can have a party that is very much supportive of the environment, but also very anti-immigration, for example. And that's a separate party from one that is pro-immigration and also doesn't care about the environment or something like that. So it's an interesting system, I think, where there's a very much a I don't know, what is it? That's not pick and choose, the pick'ems, it's like when you go to the candy shop and there's all the candy and you can choose
pick and mix.
Pick and mix. It's a very pick and mix system. Yes, that's what it is.
I love that. And our last bit of news for this episode is the ongoing drama with Bridge in the Strait of Messina.
Nothing makes me happier, I think, than returning to an old headline episode with more information because I feel like we're finally like other sort of organizations that say 2 months ago we brought you this breaking news story. Today we have an update.
Yeah.
And I now feel like that and it makes me very happy.
Yeah.
So
I
what is
agree.
this
I'm
update?
just into the drama,
Yeah,
honestly.
I'm into that as well, unfortunately.
So I don't really understand what's going on. Essentially, there are a court of auditors has rejected the government's plan for this bridge.
Yes.
And they're like, no, that doesn't work. You cannot do that. But Salvini is like, nope, I'm going to keep going. And he is saying that we need to put more funds toward this building of the bridge and the infrastructure.
Pretty much. And if you missed the last episodes, not to extend this too long, if you missed the previous episode or episodes on the bridge, essentially for the last 2,500 years, 2,000 years, Italians and then previously Romans have been trying to build a bridge between Reggio Calabria, give or take, and Messina because it's a very narrow distance over the Strait of Messina. I think the Romans at one point thought a floating bridge would work. It was essentially a mix of rafts and...
It's a cool idea.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, it's a much better idea than whatever the heck they're trying to do now. And it didn't obviously really go anywhere. I mean, I think they tried it or they attempted it. It didn't really go anywhere. But since then, there's been a lot of conversation around let's build a bridge. The biggest issue is there is a fault line between Sicily and mainland Italy, which is why you cannot have a tunnel, which is also why you cannot have a bridge, because there's a fault line. This is something that people don't seem to fully grasp. It's just mind-boggling to me. There's also...
To be fair, most people, I think, grasp it, but there's a small group of people
Yes.
who refuse to acknowledge that fault line is there and want the bridge to be there anyway.
Exactly. There's also apparently very fast-moving currents in that strait, so it essentially just basically any bridge or anything you build that needs to not be swept away, it's going to struggle to be swept away. Plus, there is a lot of boat traffic. So the bridge itself, it can't be a low... like the bridge like between, I don't know, Key West and Florida. It can't be super low. It has to be high enough to accommodate shipping containers. So essentially it has to hit these three things of earthquake, like not prone, that's the opposite. Proof, thank you. But also even if the tectonic plates shift slightly, like let's just say 1 inch.
That's the thing, because any bridge in Italy needs to be earthquake proof. Probably any bridge anywhere, but Italy is very prone to earthquakes, so that is something that engineers think about when they build these things. But not only is it in just a regular sort of earthquake-prone area, like you said, it has a fault line there. So that's
And if it
double.
moves slightly, like it shifts slightly, even like half an inch or whatever it is, it just like how long until the bridge doesn't really line up with
Right.
itself, you
I mean,
know?
it has to be super tall. There are crazy currents, which I think affect the wind in that area, right?
It's supposed to. I'm not.
I think I'm not
I
a
don't want to say. I
meteorologist
don't.
or understand wind, but I think it would. I'm guessing. Earthquakes. It's got to, I think I said it's got to be tall. There's just so many things that make this so obviously a bad project that's
Yes.
not going to work and or is going to be very dangerous.
It's also supposed to be insanely expensive. Possibly, I believe it's supposed to be the most expensive public infrastructure undertaking that Italy would have attempted. And that is this essentially the shutdown is yet again, they're saying before we spend like 1 point something trillion dollars on a bridge, that will for sure not want, like it will not 100% work. It might work, it might not. It might fail at some various points along the way.
But that infrastructure money could be used in so many other ways.
And that's, I think that was their ruling. They're essentially saying there are other things you could spend that money on. And actually, one example, I think we talked about this. It might have been the last time we did headlines. It might have been the time before, but they had just broken through a tunnel between Bergen, and but essentially between Austria and Italy. There's supposed to be a three-way tunnel between Austria, Italy, and Germany. Germany, I believe, has not yet started digging their portion of the tunnel. People wonder if they ever will, because apparently it's more of a bureaucracy situation. But Italy and Austria connected finally. They're two pieces. I mean, literally, it's like a guy pokes his head through the wall, kind of connected.
Oh,
Not
okay.
like, actually connected train tracks. But it's supposed to be a train line, and that is something where they're essentially saying it cuts down Austria Italy traffic immensely, because before it had to go through the mountains, now it can go under the mountains, so it's much quicker, much faster, much safer. There's no accidents. It's it's a basically such an amazing use of money. Let's do that instead is essentially the thing. So this has, and I think when we talked about it, I was pretty derisive toward it because I like bridges. I'm a big fan of bridges. I'm also terrified of bridges, I think, when I'm on bridges. So
I mean, they're objectively cool.
they're objectively cool. Yeah.
Engineering is amazing.
And then when
Bridges
you're on
are
there, I think
super
you're just
cool.
like, this really better hold
Yeah.
because, man, this is a bad time for this bridge to fail.
Yeah.
And no, so I think everybody wants it. It's also, it connects Sicily. And so it would help potentially, or there's an argument that like it'll help Sicily because, as we've mentioned in previous episodes, Sicily is a bit disconnected from the rest of Italy, being an island. And also just, it doesn't necessarily have a lot of the same infrastructure that that the mainland Italy has. So I think that's another argument of like, why not put a fast train there? Why not do something else? Half of Sicily is becoming a desert, so why not put some money into a public infrastructure of building more like retaining wells and things like that? So I think there's a big push, and I think Salvini has taken up the mantle from I think previous administrations who tried and failed and gotten again far. But I think this idea of I'm going to still make it happen is sort of like, okay, I mean, to do so you have to sue your own government. So I guess good luck on that.
Drama.
I know. We thrive on it, y'all. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
So I think
It's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's that. So that is simply to say, as a fun update to those of you who might have been waiting from 3 months ago, I think 4 months ago, last time we talked about this. It's now hit yet again another stall.
And those of you who've been waiting millennia, who've been
Yes.
following the story since the beginning, it is ongoing, and we will keep you updated.
I know. I'm excited to I think everybody knows that one day they're going to build a bridge and then it will fail immediately and it will just be the most glorious. I mean, nobody gets hurt. It'll
Right,
just fail.
in this
Yeah.
eventuality, yes.
And then everyone just like, see, I told you, let's never talk about this again for the next 2,500 years until we figure out that we don't need boats there anymore. Because I feel like that could work. A floating tunnel. I don't know. I'm
I
pitching
mean, they
terrible
currently
ideas.
basically have that because there's the ferry. You can take a train to Reggio Calabria. No, sorry. Messina. But you can take a train. Where does the train leave and get on the ferry?
I think somewhere around Reggio Calabria.
Okay, I thought it was at Reggio Calabria. The train gets on the ferry.
Yeah.
The whole train. And then it takes the ferry. The whole train, you guys, is on this ferry.
In
And-
pieces.
In pieces. And then it...
Or in cars, rather.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and
No.
then it gets off, and Messina becomes a full train again, and then the train goes through Sicily. That is incredible. Mm-hmm. I think we should always do that.
But also going back to the fast train, I believe, I could be wrong, I don't know, either there isn't a fast train track in Sicily or it is not connected all throughout Sicily. It may be just to Palermo from Messina. It's something strange. But that's another argument of, you can take but even the fast train between Salerno and Reggio Calabria is 200 kilometers an hour. I think it's 300 or 350 north of.
That's
But as
insane.
soon as it hits Salerno and goes down, it has to drop speed because it's not the same like level of. It doesn't hit the same guidelines of how fast it can go.
Right.
So it's just one of those things where, again, people are saying with that much money, you could have 9 times the rail system. You could have, roads. Or you could have other things. So I'm excited to see what they won't do with that money.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
And that has been Headlines for Wednesday.
With Darcy and Nathaniel.
On Friday, we're going to bring you some more interesting news and potential drama. I think that was the most dramatic one.
Yeah.
The most fun drama, I think, was the Messina Bridge.
That was, for sure.
So Friday, we'll bring you some more headlines that may be affecting your trip and certainly things that are happening in Italy.
Thank you all so much for listening.
Thanks for listening. Tanti abbracci.